Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast. Which PlayStation characters do we find most iconic? And would we want to emulate or immolate them? Guys, welcome back to our New Year's bonus series where we're going to be talking about some of our favorite characters in our the mainstream video gaming world, gamer world, I don't know. And we're going to be talking about these characters and deciding, like, do we want to be like them or do we want to immolate? Do we want to destroy them? Like, are they like evil characters that we maybe don't want to be like at all? And I'm Joshua Noel here with co-host who hates the word immolate for some reason, the one and only Christian Ashley. How's it going?
Now, Joshua was referring to a conversation we just had where I don't agree with the flow of the sentence used here or the diction he provides for this. But you know what? That's on him.
That's the fun of being production and schedule thing. I get to create the outlines, and when something like wordplay happens, we get to go with it. I am Joshua Noel. I mentioned that before. We're going to do a little bit of what we're geeking out on. An episode that's coming out right around the same time as this one, Pokemon Arceus, has caused me to get into Pokemon Arceus again. So I've been geeking out on that, playing it a lot, and basically doing that thing where, because it's a weird game and you can catch starters from other games because it's weird, I have pretty much my whole lineup as what would be starter Pokemons. And it's a lot of fun. I'm having a good time. Christian, what are you geeking out on?
That's a great game. On that, we can agree. I am maybe a third of the way through Metaphor Refantasio, and I have been really enjoying it. It's made by the same people who did Persona. Oh, actually, some of the people who did Persona. So I'm really enjoying what they're doing so far. It's really fun.
I've heard the name Persona before. Is that an anime or game?
Yes.
Okay. Well, guys, if you're on a laptop, please consider rating and reviewing our show on Podchaser or on Good Pods. This is going to help our show gain recognition and make it a little bit easier to find in, the main search engines that people use. If you're not on a laptop, if you're on your phone, please consider rating, reviewing, or commenting on our show on Apple Podcast or Spotify. This is going to help prioritize our show in these apps' algorithms so that it comes up when people search. So thank you guys in advance for the support. We really do appreciate it. We also appreciate our supporters. So you can sponsor our show on Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon. So today we're going to do a shout out to James Barrett. Thank you so much for supporting the show. If you guys would like your own shout out like James, you can get one simply by sponsoring our show for as little as $3 a month on one of those platforms mentioned above. Again, Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon. Since this is part of a series, our New Year's bonus series, where we're trying to figure out which characters we want to be like in this new year of 2025, you can find a link to the whole series down below. Now it's time to get into the meat of it. Christian, we're going to be going over the big gaming icons, the characters that we love from PlayStation games. Both which characters we find really iconic. And then we're also going to talk about, like, personally, but we're also going to talk about the characters that are like iconic more in the mainstream. Because some of my characters are like, hey, this is iconic to me, but that doesn't mean like mainstream would recognize these characters. So we're going to talk about both of those, do a little bit of comparison, go over some stuff. First off, let's kind of go over our history with PlayStation games. Christian, when did you start getting into like PlayStation games? Did you like grow up with a PlayStation? Is that like later on? Like, what's your experience?
Yeah, I didn't start until the PS4 came out. I had played a couple of times with other people, with other friends on like a PS1 and PS2, but we were mostly an Xbox and Nintendo family growing up. And then when I got, money of my own, decided to branch off, checked out the PS4 and just got the PS5 a couple years ago. So I think I'm more of a PlayStation guy at the moment.
All right. Yeah, I am a little bit weird. I grew up with a PlayStation and a Nintendo 64. PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64. I remember that vividly. Both of them broke for the same reason. My little brother thought they were piggy banks and shoved coins in them. The PlayStation lasted a little bit longer than Nintendo. I think that slot on the top really confused him a little bit quicker than the PlayStation. I don't understand how he confused the PlayStation. That might have just been out of spite because I was mad about the Nintendo. But so PlayStation kind of stuck with me. I remembered I tried to switch over to Xbox when it came out, and my parents being my parents, and me being the weirdo that I am, there was half the games I wasn't allowed to play. And then the half that I was allowed to play, I remember Halo, and I was like, this is easy and boring, and why would I want to play this? And I never got into Halo. I didn't get it. So the next year I got a PlayStation, and that's when Ratchet and Clank came out, and I discovered Kingdom Hearts, and and my whole life was changed forever. And I'm still obsessed with some of those properties. In fact, I have an entire Substack about Kingdom Hearts. And Ratchet and Clank is almost, that game alone has caused me to almost buy a PS5 multiple times. Instead, I've realized I can play it on Steam Deck, so now I don't need the PlayStation. So there's that.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually, for a long time, Ratchet and Clank was probably my favorite game for a little while. Oh, even over Kingdom Hearts. Then I don't know. Kingdom Hearts stayed the test of time a little bit better for me. Couldn't tell you why. Just did. But if we're talking about PlayStation icons, we got to talk about the times that PlayStation itself recognized some of its icons. So first off, I kind of want to talk a little bit about, you have PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale that came out on the PS3 and PS Vita, and PlayStation Move Heroes that was part of the PlayStation Move thing that happened on PS3 that everybody forgot about, where PlayStation was like, the Wii's cool, what if we did that? And it did not work out. Christian, are you familiar with either of these games?
Aware of their existence, but I've never once played them. And to be honest, they always just felt like a Super Smash Brothers, if you bought it off of Wish kind of idea.
Oh, okay. PlayStation Move Heroes was lame. I gotta say, that one was lame. I played it anyway because I love that. It was just the three characters: Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and Sly Cooper, and one of his sidekicks, the turtle. I don't remember his name. I'm being bad today. That one was lame because it was just little puzzle games basically, and I was like, why am I doing this? PlayStation All Stars though was Super Smash Bros. But better, and characters that I liked. Up until I think Smash Bros. Brawl. I think I probably like Smash Bros. Brawl more, but I like it better than any of the other Smash Bros. Mostly because you don't have the ledge thing where people can fall off the ledge. You actually have to defeat them. They can't fall. There's not many accidents. The items don't blow up the game as much. So it's a lot more level playing field. A smaller roster. And for me, a more interesting roster because I enjoy these characters more personally. But that's just me. The characters in All Stars were kind of interesting because you have Bioshock, you have Sackboy, Fat Princess from the cake thing that I don't remember, Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter, Sly Cooper, obviously Kratos and Zeus. You can play as Zeus, which is great. Why do I remember Isaac Clarke? That's Dead Space guy's name, right?
Dead Space.
In my mind, he's just
I think
Isaac.
that's his name.
Yeah. Okay. Isaac Clarke. Yeah. So he's in that as well. There's a few other characters. Nathan Drake. It was a lot of fun, but I think PlayStation choosing its own, these are the characters where I kind of a little bit kind of gives the insight on what was selling. Because, they didn't just pick their favorites. They picked what they thought was going to get people to buy the game. Newer though, Astrobot. Christian, do you know anything about this game?
I know it just won Game of the Year, didn't it?
Yeah. And it beat Nintendo out for the family-friendly Game of the Year, which PlayStation never beats Nintendo on that.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like it'd be something that'd be my speed, but I do know that a lot of people really love it. It's more like a chill, laid-back kind of setting. Is it a puzzle game, a platformer? What is it exactly?
I think it's a puzzle. I don't really know.
Okay.
I just knew that it won Game of the Year. Some of the different stages
I know
are
there's
like...
lots of character skins you can get. Because I did see that Spider-Man and Miles Morales, both Spider-Man,
What?
are in
I
the
didn't know
game
that.
recently. Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Yeah. You could almost argue that Spider-Man's a PlayStation icon, but almost. Not quite.
I didn't
think
consider
it's
it.
still
But
Marvel.
he's been on multiple consoles all over the
Yeah.
place. So I put him off the list.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that argument. But in Astrobot, there are some different, there's like 4 stages. Like you can do like Nathan Drake levels. There's God of War levels. There's like Horizon levels and like Loco Roco or something that I just don't know what it is. Let's see if I can figure it out. Oh, the Ape game. That's one. That's one of the stages. Do you know what that game is?
Nope.
I always forget what it's called. I've never been interested. Horizon. But yeah. So other ones. This is a fun one. Mostly in Japan, I think this character is more popular. Parapapa the Rapper. It's popular. He was also a character in PlayStation All-Stars. I didn't know who he was until then. Do you know anything about him?
And the only reason I know he exists, I think there was a Robot Chicken sketch where he was like one of the stars of it. Other than that, I would never have known he existed.
Perfect. Sackboy obviously is in PlayStation All-Stars. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I felt like there was more in here that I wanted to look at. We'll look at it later. For now, though, we're going to go to our top 3 personal picks for most iconic PlayStation characters. I'll let you go first for number 3. Christian, who is your number 3 choice for PlayStation iconic character?
Okay. So my criteria for this is, in light of everything else, that I did not start off playing PlayStation games. I've only started at the 4. So there's going to be a lot there that I don't know. But I'm going to start off with my first game for the PlayStation and the player character you design around that, which is the Hunter from Bloodborne. So this is obviously a customizable character, Bloodborne being a game where you wake up in a clinic and like your FromSoft special, you have no clue what's going on. Even if you read everything in the game, you're still completely and utterly lost. And that's why Vati Vidya exists, and you listen to his videos, and they're there to help you figure things out. So your journey across that, you are one of many hunters across Yarnum, where you are trying to stop these eldritch beings you eventually find along the way, because you start off your typical to like werewolf like beasts and stuff like that you're fighting, and there's these giant monsters that are like taking over the world, that you find that humans messed up a lot of things and messed with things they shouldn't have messed with, and now it's your job to pick up the scraps and try and kill everything before it kills all of humanity, while humanity's busy taking care of itself. So it's a very bleak game in many respects. But
yeah, that's a lot.
That also depends on your play style, because it's very customizable to where you can embrace kind of the chaos yourself and make things even worse for the world and kind of reshape a little bit of it in your own image. Not to the point where you're like a god or anything like that. But there's also one, you can fight for people. You can try and save as many lives as possible, while also understanding that a lot of this is humanity's fault. And really, like, you have options to speak, but your character never speaks. But they're really defined by you. And that's a really fun thing for this. Really, FromSoft in general is just to have your protagonists make their decisions in the world and then figure out what they want to do, what you want them to do, and how you think they should mold into the world that's kind of trying to shape them right back.
Mm-hmm. And you said the world itself is kind of darker and more bleak. So interacting with it's kind of, okay. Does that encourage you to be more bleak, or does it encourage you to be less bleak because you're like trying to rebel?
Well, that's, for me personally, it causes me to rebel against that idea, because I see that bleakness, and in my heart of hearts, I want to go out and change things as much as possible. I want to save as many of the NPCs as possible, and some of them you can't, just so regardless of your choices. But there's others that you can make sure last until the end of the game. And if you trust the wrong person, or if you make the wrong dialogue option, they can be lost. Or if you send them to the wrong place, instead of, there's supposed to be 2 safe havens here, one of them looks like the clinic you came from is, huge spoilers for Bloodborne, but it's been out forever, is actually a location where people are being experimented on. So if you send people there, they're all dead. Versus the church, where there's this really creepy looking person that normally you'd go, I don't know about that one. They're actually the ones who are actually trying to take care of people. So it's like, struggling with your own prejudices. What do you think would be the right decision here? So I'm definitely one of those people who fights as hard as possible to keep as many people alive as possible in the game. But you can easily go the other path, and it's easier to do so. And I think that's kind of the allure of something like that. It's like, well, the dark side is always kind of easier.
Yeah, for whatever reason, whenever I play games like this, I always in like my first go round, and I think part of it is because like it's so not natural to me to choose like the dark, angry side. I always go through first all dark, evil, chaos. Like, what is like the most chaos I can create in this game? Like, it's almost like I'm trying to like test the limits of the game. Like, what actually happens if I just try to kill literally every person who talks to me? But then usually like if I play a game more than once, then I'll go back and try to like actually play it as myself and like what choices I would really make. But I don't know. The first play round is always fun to just kind of mess around,
Okay.
Okay, so for this character, you said the hunter. First, would you want to emulate him, or would you want to like destroy him? If he existed in real life, would you be like, I want to be like him, or do you want to kill him?
Well, that's an excellent question, because once again, it depends on the player's choice and what they do. There are plenty of options where you can be an outright jerk to people. You can just murder them the first time you meet them and cause the world to end up in further madness and despair. Or you can do the harder route, which is go into locations where you're going to have to fight tougher monsters. You got to change where your build is at. You got to figure out, okay, this weapon works better there. This type of fire works better against everything else. So, but at that same time, you're living in a world that's been like messed up by humanity and who meddled with things they weren't supposed to meddle with. So you could argue that it's bad for us at the same time to just let humanity continue to prosper, because those same people might come back and do it again. So I'd argue overall that I would like to emulate aspects of a good hunter who is actually, fighting for people, fighting to free them from the plague that's going on here. Is everyone's kind of gotten obsessed with blood. I mean, there's no vampires in the game, but you're essentially playing pretty much every human is a vampire at some point in time because of the way that blood is treated in this game. So I would emulate certain aspects, but to stay within the confines of what has been created here, I will use
I'm going to make him say the word.
I will use that word on the more negative aspects of not thinking through your decision making, which, hey, if you're playing for the first time, it's not really your fault because you don't have access to the guides. There are no, as is typical of FromSoft games, no like box or exclamation point that points you where you're supposed to go. So you're just bumbling around, which is one of the most frustrating parts of the game. I've always had to use guides to actually get the optimal ending, which you would never know unless you read a guide.
Yeah. Well, that's what's kind of interesting about some of the series too, is like, if we're talking about like which characters we want to emulate or immolate, it's kind of like the characters like this. Well, it's like, it depends what choices he made, right? We're gonna talk about some characters later. And even like if I look at my own self, there's like points in my life where I would look at the character I was and go, let's kill that guy. And then there's points where I'm like, actually, he's okay. So I'm sure we'll get more to that with some of the other characters, but it's just interesting how that's already kind of starts to stand out with some of these games where choice is more of a factor. My number 3 pick. See, the thing is, like, 3 and 2 are hard. I'm in between like 4 different characters for 3 and 2. 1 is the only one that I'm like, yeah, this is definitely my choice. It's the only one that there's a clear pick. But for number 3, I'm going to go with Spyro the Dragon. Going old school PlayStation 1, running around this little purple dragon, doing crazy stuff. I think the thing for me, and I remind you, I was really young when I played this, so I don't remember a lot of the stuff. Spyro, I loved it because there were some elements of like, you have to like go search and find, and as you do the puzzles and you do go search, then you kind of gain new power. So it's like, it's like a stepping stone. Like eventually this kind of play will turn into some of the RPGs that we like. It's definitely not an RPG though. It's definitely a platform. But you can kind of see where the elements will eventually evolve gaming as we go along. But Spyro's a tiny little purple dragon. And he's fighting these giant dragons and all this other stuff. And I don't remember like what the actual story was, but it always stood out to me that like, here's this character who's like somewhere between the size of my dog and me, you know, and he's fighting like the kind of dragons we see in like Game of Thrones and like, what's the other thing? Elder Scrolls. Usually they don't look like that, but they're that size. And it's like, what? So to me, I always liked Spyro because like this kind of game, like the music, the feel, and just who you're fighting. It's like the little guy versus the big guy, you know, and there's something about that courage and simplicity that you're like, oh yeah, this is just pretending to be a brave little dragon. It's great. I love it. I know that's like super simple. So yeah, obviously I'm going to say I want to emulate Spyro. I want to have that courage. I want to have that bravery where like I'm the little weirdo who maybe isn't as, a powerhouse like some of these other people out there. I don't have to do like physical fights, but usually for me, it's more like intellectual stuff that I find myself in where I'm like, I disagree with somebody, and it's easy, especially being the Unity guy, to be like, well, you're smarter than me. So yes, sir. And to kind of like, where is that courage? Because I know, hey, I still want to have Unity, but I disagree. Here's my thoughts, So Spyro still inspires me, even if it's a silly little dragon game with simple story and simple music. Yeah. That's where I'm at.
For Spyro, I have a vague memory of being at a friend's house trying to play this game, but I've always been bad at platformers, so it's nothing against the games themselves. It's more like a skill issue on my end. So I know next to nothing other than, there's a purple dragon and he breathes fire, I'm assuming, and he flies around. So I am glad other people get something out of this.
Oh, he breathes way more than just fire. Okay, listen, we can get lightning breath on some of these games. Oh man, no, it's fun. I love it. But yeah, it's funny though, because like I pretty much have discovered that platformers are where I thrive. I love platformer games.
I always get the timing wrong.
I just dislike how we're getting further away from platformers. Not because I'm like all games should be platformers, but it's more just like I like diversity, and it feels like in the gaming world, it's like for a while, okay, we're only going to do RPGs, and then it's okay, now we're just going to create first-person shooters, and it's like what if we just create a variety and like let's keep it diverse? So usually it seems like there's like a theme, like the gamer society just goes through eras for some reason. Anyway, that's a different rant. Yeah. Number 2 pick. Do you want me to go first this time?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. This is so difficult, but all right, I'm going to go with none other than Isaac Clarke. I love the Dead Space games. They're so much fun. For those who don't know and haven't heard our other episodes about it, basically zombies in space, but humans might be the cause of the zombies. And it also involves like a religious cult and a bunch of crazy, weird politics and stuff. We also, by the time this came out, there's a primarily political episode that just came out about this with me and DJ talking about some of the politics behind it all. But Isaac he's an engineer. He's lost his family. He's lost a lot of other people due to this weird virus and then cult and all this other stuff. And it's like, I think the thing I like about Isaac is he's no nonsense. It's like, it's not that he's like, hey, let me tell this cult why they're wrong and spell it out. He's just like, yeah, I don't really need to engage. Like, I'm just going to fight what is clearly the bad guys and then survive. It's no nonsense. He's still, he's going to save the day. He's going to do the right thing. It's not like, I don't think he's like particularly a high moral character or anything. It's mostly just like survival is the goal, but it's just so, it stands out that like when everybody else is like engaging in all this like weird religion, like, oh, is it a cult? Is it not a cult? Should the government be okay doing this? Should it not be okay doing this? Isaac's like, let's survive. It's something about like the no nonsense approach that he has, and like the fact that like he's able to like create weapons and upgrade his own weapons throughout the game because he's an engineer. Like he's not even like a skilled fighter. He's not like a military guy that came in. He's just smart. And so using his intelligence to survive, and then also just kind of that no nonsense. Like I love it. I want to emulate all those things. Of course, there are probably things I also would want to get rid of. I'm just trying to think about it. I don't really know what they would be. I feel like he's probably too attached to his personal, relationships and things, and maybe has his hope in wrong places. But overall, I like the intelligence of it. I like just kind of the ingenuity and all that. It's a fun character. Anything to add, Christian? I don't think you've ever played these.
I have never played these, but what I have watched someone play 1 through 3.
So
I don't
good.
remember everything, but what I appreciate a lot about the games is that you're literally just some guy. You're not the chosen one by any stretch of the imagination. You're not a super ultramarine. Okay, from what I recall, but like you were literally like everyone is pretty much dead around you. How are you going to survive? What are you going to use with you? I have this trusty little device that's just for repairs or stuff like that. That becomes like his ultimate weapon.
Yeah,
and like as
great.
he upgrades it along the game, which is I like to see in that ingenuity, and that ingenuity is something that I think we should emulate. It's like because no plan survives contact with the enemy. Regardless of what that is. And like, I'm not talking just on the battlefield. I'm talking about in life, when things are, wrenches thrown into your plans, well, you're going to solve the problem. You're going to let the problem just beat you down, or you're going to do something about it. And that's what I can appreciate about Isaac is that he does something about it multiple times over and becomes a way more of, a talented, killer. Was it? Oh my gosh, the exomorphs.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Exomorphs as time goes on because of his experience, because he didn't give up. No, Exomorphs is gosh, what is it?
Man, if you wouldn't have said what it was.
Okay, you know what? While we're still here, I will look it up and we'll see what necromorphs. I had the morph part right.
I was like, something about it just didn't quite seem like it. Almost out of it, but not quite. Okay. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well, there's something with we're gonna get in this and we would have already gotten into this. Time is weird, guys. We're recording this before the other episode, but the other episode's coming out first. But there's something about how the hive mind of the necromorphs choose a host, and that person can't be taken over. So he's not like a chosen one, but like due to biological mishaps, he ends up being a little bit safer than some of the other people. But the thing that's interesting is so many other people on his ship or in the scenario that he's in just give up. They try to lock themselves away and they end up getting killed or, whatever, or mutated into a necromorph. He never gives up. Like, I don't know. I love that. I love that he's like, yeah, not a warrior, just an engineer. Not going to die though. So I'm just going to outsmart these guys. Yeah, then he does. He basically outsmarts an entire cult. It's great.
Yeah. I remember exomorphs are from Star Trek Elite Force 2.
That checks out. But yeah, so that's my number 2. I'm going to emulate his ingenuity and what was the other stuff that I said? His straightforwardness, bravery, that kind of stuff. But maybe if I had to pick some characteristics to immolate, it's probably going to be more of his how tightly he holds some of his personal relationships. Not that I'm against personal relationships. It's just one of those. The way he holds onto it's probably unhealthy. But that's me doing a stretch. I really can't think of many things I dislike about the guy. I'm just trying. I'm reaching.
Yes.
I'm reaching here. All right, Christian, what's your number 2?
Hi, my name is TJ Blackwell, also known as Tejas, Tiberius Wan, Tejas Jackson, Kung Fu Dugong recently. I go by many names. And I came here today to ask you to please check out our YouTube channel. There are a bunch of exclusive series there, like Comic Book Ketchup, Manga Mustard, Drinks with Tejas, which is my personal favorite, the one where I get to talk to other people about their favorite drinks or just drinks in general. We have a companion series to our annual theme on YouTube. We do Friday Night Frights, Wednesday Night Weeaboo. Those are both ran by Christian Ashley. He's great. Check him out. There are exclusive shorts, which are pretty new. Christian reviews. He's going to review every Spider-Man comic one at a time, which is insane. Non-canon, which is where Joshua will be reviewing one IP from outside of canon in his favorite fandoms, or a piece of literature that is part of the biblical extra canonical material, which is a super interesting short series. Will's Wednesday pull list, where he talks about his comic book pull list each week. He picks a top comic for his weeklies. And there are other surprise bonus content. It goes straight to YouTube. And many of our regular podcast episodes get posted there as well, because we like to see each other when we talk, and we don't want to rob you of that ability. So check us out, like, subscribe. We would appreciate it so much, and it helps us a ton. Thank you.
I'm going to go with someone I've gained a recent appreciation of from an episode we did, and actually playing some of the older games. and that being Kratos from the God of War series. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Kratos is a very angry man. Naturally so, given everything that he's gone through. But it takes place in Greece. The Greek gods are real, they're active in the world just like they are in Greek mythology. Kratos, I think at the beginning, believes he is a son of Ares, and Ares, they kind of have this whole antagonistic relationship where Kratos' family is taken away, but as you learn along the way, he's actually Zeus's son, and a lot of the machinations that happen that brought Kratos to where he is are kind of his fault. But Kratos, over time, is gifted with powers to take down the gods themselves, actually working with Athena to get some of them out of the way, and eventually destroys and murders, really, the entire pantheon. And later on, we see him in the newer games where he is moved to the Scandinavian kind of regions of the world, where he is now facing up against North's gods because he marries a giant and has a son with her. And of course, in the process of mourning her after her death, he is confronted by the gods because of another prophecy. And, in the midst of a life that has a lot of prophecies. And of course, this means all the Norse gods must die. So, yeah.
Checks out.
So why him specifically? Like, he is a very broken man. And he is someone who, if you're starting off at the very first game, I'm not going to say there's not depth to his character in the first couple of games.
But you could say it.
But
you wouldn't be wrong.
He is very much the rip and tear kind of stereotype we get from like Doom or something like that, where your job is to murderize things because your job is to murderize things. Yeah, and it's fun to do so. But as the series grows on, we start to see him like develop a relationship with Pandora as well, and then finding out about his own lineage, and then becoming a father again with Atreus, who, we find out is actually, spoilers, Loki, and what that means to his current relationship with, the Norse gods and how he's handling all that. I haven't played Ragnarok yet. That is on my list to do.
It's so much better.
But I know it.
It's so good.
I know enough of what happens to get there. But what we see about Kratos that I really like is how he is starting to deny his anger to an extent. To say it's still there. It is buried really deep at the beginning of the newer games. But he was trying to settle down and not bother anyone. Like, he had lost everything, some of it at his own hands. And he was trying to make a new start for himself. And, as Christians, that's kind of what we do. When we come to faith, like, there was an old man of who we used to be, an old woman of who we used to be. And, Jesus Christ got rid of them on the cross. But at the same time, we're still human. We still make mistakes. So how do we wrestle with who we used to be versus who we're supposed to be now? And obviously, Kratos is no paragon of Christian virtues. But there's something about him where he's like, trying to fight against his baser instincts and then learning, no, there's a good way to channel anger. That there's even a righteous way to fuel anger. And it's also that slippery slope of how far do I go and latch onto this anger before I end up back to where I used to be? And it's not an easy answer for that. But for him, I love seeing how he fights against himself, but also at the same time, gives in to parts of himself that need to happen in order to save people. Not because he's noble, but because, it's Atreus or is someone who's helping him towards a goal or something like that. And he's even mourning his wife the entire time. Like, he settled down again and found new love. And it seems like they were very affectionate for Kratos at this point in time. So I think that's something that stands out to me personally about something that really gives me like, okay, this is a character I can really get behind.
Man. Okay. I like it. Yeah, I love that you chose him because I think, I'm trying to remember, is it St. John of the Cross that writes the Long Dark Night of the Soul? I think it is.
I do not remember, but I can look it up.
Probably is. And that's what his story kind of reminds me of. Like, well, first, just on like a technical side, I love how the creators of the new God of War games took what was a hack and slash and kind of like nuanced into like a really interesting, different kind of game altogether. It's almost like somewhere between like the Skyrim kind of RPG and like a regular platformer. Like, it's in between, I feel like. Like, so it's fun. I like how they did that. As far as gameplay goes, as far as the character goes, the Long Dark Night of the Soul, I feel like describes where he's at when this starts, where his wife's dead. Everything he learned about his past, he went through a deconstruction. He learned that the Greek gods he thought he was a part of, like, were all false, and like he even killed most of them. So he's like alone. His wife died, and he's left here with a son that he does still care about. But he's like, man, screw life. It's like screw life and living. And yet he still finds a way to step up to the occasion, to be a hero, to show honor to his wife's death, to show honor to his son's heritage and what it means to be Loki, and just the way that he's able to do that is, it's encouraging. That's what I was talking about earlier when I was like, there are parts in my own life where I'm like Kratos in those original PlayStation 2 games where you're like, yeah, let's just kill this character. We don't need him. Right? Like I would immolate that Kratos. If I look at who I was in like 2010, 2011, that young college student, Josh, I'm like, let's kill that guy. Let's get rid of him. But you never know what happens. Of a Long Dark Night of the Soul. In the darkest times, that Jude and the Lion song I love, Long Dark Night of the Soul. It's 6 feet deep where you got to go to see the light. And it's one of these things where it's like sometimes people hit their lowest, and then all of a sudden what emerges is something more beautiful than you could have thought. So it's kind of like, yeah, maybe don't give up on ourselves or others. You never know what'll happen. Could go from a hack and slash to a good dad.
For him.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to add on Kratos?
No. Solid character. If you haven't played the games, like I'd recommend the newest ones more, but if you can go back and play them, go back and play them.
Yeah. Also, Odin is hilarious. Like his entire motive just makes me laugh. But that's for a different thing. All right. So now, of course, it's time for me to tell my number one, and everyone is expecting me to say Sora from Kingdom Hearts, but I'm not going to say that because he's not really a PlayStation character. Originally, the first games were on PlayStation, right. But then Chain of Memories was Nintendo. Some of the GameCube ones, he was on DS, and then now Kingdom Hearts 3 is also on Xbox, and you're getting everything re-released on Xbox, and then also Steam. He didn't make it on PlayStation All-Stars, but he did make it to Smash Bros. So if anything, he's closer to a Nintendo character. But the first game was PlayStation, so I don't feel like it's right to see a Nintendo character either. So I'm going to have to discount.
That's why I took him off my list.
Beautiful, wonderful Sora, who has there's so many great things I could say about him. But instead, my clear pick for number one, the best PlayStation character for me, the most iconic, Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank. I love this guy so much. And ironically, even though he's like the most iconic to me, he's also probably the one that I'm like, there's the most attributes that I'm like, I don't want to be like this guy at the same time. So for those who don't know, Ratchet and Clank, Ratchet, this guy originally, he's just some alien who's a mechanic, a tiny little robot whose malfunction crashes on his planet, tells him, hey, the universe is about to be doomed. These guys making robots, they're trying to make killer robots. I was supposed to be one of them, but I don't know. They messed up, and now I'm here. I'm basically just a jetpack. So the two end up together to save the universe. Ratchet mostly begrudgingly. Usually when he does save the universe, it's because like someone tells him there's money involved, or he's like, wait a minute, I could meet some pretty girls. Heck yeah, I'll do that. His motives are usually not because he wants to save the world. Usually it's even in part of the first game, he wanted to meet Quark, who was his hero, who turned out to be a big doofus. But I think what's funny is like I feel like that sounds so childish. Like I should have said like he turned out to be evil or bad, but it's like, no, listen, trust me. Doofus is the correct word. For Quark, doofus is absolutely the correct word. But Ratchet, one of the things that I love about him is he stays a mechanic, stays true to himself. He doesn't like, oh, well, hey, now that I'm a big hero, 3 games later, I saved the galaxy 4 times. Everyone knows my name. I don't need this wrench anymore. Let me just guns and go in blazing. He still does go in blazing, but he's like, I'm going to keep my wrench. I am a mechanic, and he stays true to who he is throughout the game. And he always makes people laugh. He's got like this great sarcasm. It's so funny, makes the players laugh and makes those around him laugh. And I don't know, the staying true to himself thing, I think, is the biggest thing, because he sees so many things. You end up learning that he is literally the last Lombax in his galaxy. Other games with multi-dimensions and stuff challenge some of this, yes. But we won't get into that. But the thing, like, he is the last of his kind in the entire universe. And he shows up to, like, battle arenas where there's, like, these giant robots are going to kill you now. And he's like, let me crack a joke real quick and then we'll fight. And you're like, wow, he's just so true to himself. Even if I don't like a lot of the stuff, he shows up and finds out that one of the bad guys has Courtney Gears, which is definitely just Britney Spears, because literally says, don't hit me one more time during the fight scene. These games are just so funny, but and he's like, hey, I like her, she's cute, whatever. And then Clank's like, she's a robot. Like, how can you even how could you care about what she looks like? And he's like, just do. And he's like, races. And I'm gonna find an excuse that it makes sense for me to do this race because I need money right now. And he just, I don't know, something about staying true to himself, even if some of that is he's after money and girls and that kind of stuff. He's basically Iron Man. But he's Iron Man without the utilitarian streak. He's not going to do anything to save the day, but he is willing to save the day as long as he gets something out of it. I think the thing that I love about him is that he's true to who he is. He does have a lot of courage when it comes down to it, even if he doesn't get money out of it. If his friends are in danger, he's going. One of the big moments for me, because so many times throughout the game, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. He's going to wait till there's money involved. But then Al, the plumber, someone kills Al. And Ratchet said, you know what? Nah, I'm getting that guy. And for me, especially because I played these games as much younger, right? And I'm like, I thought we were just in this for money. Nah, not when they mess with Al. We getting them. Something about that, it was just so genuine. So I think that's the thing that I love about him. He's very genuine. He's got a great sense of humor. And even though a lot of times his reality is pretty dark, he still stays true to himself. And that's something that I really appreciate. So that's why, to me, he's so iconic. Plus, when I think of PlayStation, I just can't imagine getting a PlayStation and not wanting to grab a wrench, get a gun that turns someone into a sheep, and then, I don't know, a tiny mini nuke gun, because you can get that for some reason. And just, it's just chaos, the newer games, when they suddenly introduced the disco ball you could throw and force your enemies to dance. Brilliant. It was great. Like, every part of this game, it's very ADHD core too. Also, one of the time games, there's definitely a Doctor Who reference in. Just saying. But yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine playing a PlayStation and not thinking about Ratchet, and for all the good and bad that comes with that. Because he's definitely, he's a womanizer. So I would immolate the womanizing and the kind of selfishness, but I would definitely want to emulate how he is true to himself, how he stays so genuine, and his sense of humor. Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Also, I've never played a single game here.
Oh, you are missing out. For a very brief time, Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal, the third one, I was number 1 on the leaderboards online. It was great. I was very proud of that moment. Also, looking back, kind of sad that I spent that much time playing Ratchet. But I was good.
Yeah.
We would, at like New Year's parties and stuff, everybody would come, and because it was only up to 4 player if you played on local. And we would play where it was me versus literally everyone else. And I still always won, but it was fun.
Excellent.
One guy figured out how the sniper worked, and that made it more challenging. Still won. But yeah, that's my top 3. Wait, that was my number 1. Have we done your number 1 yet? We have not. Would you like to enlighten everybody?
Yeah. I, as per usual, am cheating. And I have 2 people on my number 1. And that is going to be Ellie and Joel from The Last of Us. Because I could not separate the 2. Because I'm better than Naughty Dog and what they did in part 2. So, Yeah.
Spoilers,
We'll
by
get
the
there
way,
when we get
everybody, for people who've only seen season 1
I
of the
said
show.
separated. That could mean anything.
I'm just saying there are spoilers now.
Yes, there are most definitely spoilers right now. So, for anyone who doesn't know who these characters are, Joel is who you start off as in The Last of Us. He's kind of your gruffled a veteran of the fact that he has been forced to live in a world for the past 10, 20 some years. I can't remember off the top of my head, where the world has been taken over by a fungal infection that has turned people, clickers, who are basically your zombies of the series, where if you are infected
Great
by
zombies.
the fungus, you're done for. And if this actually exists in the world, we'd all be done for. But let's not worry about the physics of that right now, or the biology of that, I should say. So, and he finds that he's being tasked to deliver a package to a group of freedom fighters, terrorists, kind of depends on who you ask, called the Fireflies. And the package is a young girl named Ellie, who he finds along the way is actually immune to the disease. She got bit by a clicker, and that's normally 100% fatal. But she managed to survive. They've studied her, and now they want to study her again to see if they could potentially make a cure. So, and he's also kind of built up on the idea that when the outbreak first came out, he was trying to protect his daughter, and she didn't make it. And so as the time goes on with the two of them, they create a father-daughter relationship that is very meaningful, very wonderful, that is very undercut by what happens in the second game. And it's really fun seeing them together. So that's who they are. But like, why do they stand out to me personally? Because, I mean, they're both very broken people in different ways. If you play the DLC for Last of Us, you find that Ellie lost her first love in the same clicker attack that she found that she was immune to, and she's very broken and bitter as a result. Her parents are gone. Versus Joel, who lost his daughter, has kind of lost kind of hope in the world, and just kind of is like a mercenary of sorts and doing underhanded deals just to get by in the world because he doesn't think that people matter. He doesn't think that anything matters. And then as they develop a father-daughter relationship of a sort, they end up like holding each other up and picking them up and making them realize, there's parts of life that are really worth living and there's a reason to fight for everything.
Great stuff.
Yeah. And I love their, relationship. It's just a wonderful showing of found family at, once again, is utterly ruined. I will preface this with, I have not played part 2, but I have watched part 2 to see if I wanted to buy it and play it. And now I'm glad I didn't spend the money.
I'm told
because
it's great
that
gameplay,
is upended. The gameplay is much better than the first game. It's not as janky. That's definitely an improvement. The story, on the other hand, the characterization is where it's fatally flawed and awful. And the fact that you don't really get to handle a certain person in that game like they really should. They should be dead on the floor, never to menace anyone again, but yet they get to live at the end because forgiveness, and the false kind of forgiveness, the world's view of forgiveness versus actual forgiveness. So I have gripes, shall we say, and I really want to look forward to season 2 when that does come out, but I also know where we're heading. So there's that. But yeah, that's why.
Did you think season 1 handled the relationship really well still? Absolutely. Okay, cool.
Because actually, that's one thing I wouldn't want to emulate about Joel is the decision that he makes at the end. I know a lot of people, when I first played the game, I had people say, yeah, it was real messed up that he didn't, share the truth. I'm like, that's what you were upset about? Not the fact that, he murdered a bunch of people when there was a potential cure on the list. And yet, yes, that was, what should have happened if it were me would have been, hey, Ellie, here's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to die if this happens. It is your choice, yes or no. And I will tell you, there's no guarantee that you dying saves everyone, but I'm going to give it to you. And instead, they don't give her the information she needs. He lies to her about what happened. And so her choice is taken away from her. And I really despise that part of the last bit of the game because it builds up on things that happens in part 2 that should have been handled better if he had just made a certain decision. So I think his decision making is one thing that I would excise from his character in that, let her know the truth. Let her know what's going on. And then if she chooses not to go with it, then we can go on a murder spree of the Fireflies.
This is one of those where intellectually I agree with you. I'm like, that is the correct thing. But honestly, if I was in his spot, I think I would have done the exact same thing he did. Like, just being real about my own character. I'm like, yeah, I could see where I'd be like, nah, not giving you the choice to die. We ain't doing this. Because that's
how we differ.
It's a really hard. I don't know. That's really hard to do. What's interesting is, not to contradict the Bible, but the Bible does that. It says, greater love had no man than this, and lay down his own life for his friends. And I'm like, I personally, having experienced death a little bit, some stuff like that, I'm like, I just completely going through everything I went through. If it were go through that again and die for Christian, even, or he has to go through it. Nah, it's way easier for me to go through it than to watch you go through it. It's like, I don't know, something about it. And like, yeah, greater love had no man than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. But also, it might be a lot more challenging to let your friend lay down their life for you. It's like, I don't know. Maybe it's a pride thing. I'm not sure. Selfishness, maybe.
Personally, the choice is easy for me. Like, I'd die. Just even knowing that there wasn't 100% guarantee, because knowing that maybe that death could mean that millions of people could survive, the infection based on a cure.
That's why I'm not telling you. That's why I'm not telling you. I'm just going to,
but
take the option off the board.
I need to know that. I need to have, as much information as possible so I can consent to something like that, versus like just telling me, oh, you'll be fine. You'll wake up after this and I'm dead either way, which I think that's what takes away a lot of Ellie's choice in that matter, is that she doesn't know what's going on. They have lied to her, and it's that continued lying that messes up everything. If she had just been honest, they could have gone either way. She could have said, hey, I want to live, and I would have honored her choice. Or she could have said, you know what? I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I think that is the correct thing to do. I'm just, I'm just being honest with y'all. If any of you know me and it comes down to it, I will lie to you. I then kill everybody and never let you know what happened. Because I just refuse to watch my friends go through this. Yeah, I sure will. No questions asked. Listen, I'll stop the world, lie to everyone, and murder the world for you. Or melt for you. Well, I don't know how the song goes. All right. Top 3 out of the way. What other honorable mentions do you have, if any?
I mean, technically, on the recent games, I think they're cross-console, but like the original Final Fantasy VII, I think Cloud would be up there for someone I'd have as an exclusive.
Good one.
I think the original Metal Gears were on. No, they were before then, so that wouldn't be PlayStation only.
BioShock, I think, was originally PlayStation.
BioShock, so the Big Daddies would be one.
That's a good one.
I have not played Horizon or the sequel, but from what I understand,
neither,
people really
TJ
engage
told me
with it.
No. So apparently,
he would not point
so.
Aloy up there. Okay, I think a lot of people like her. I know nothing about those games other than it just seems like the kind of like survival stuff I don't care about. So maybe there's more to it than that.
I mean, I think the thing is, like, TJ would usually be like, you probably won't like it. If TJ says you're not going to like that, I just believe him.
Okay.
Because he just so rarely gives a solid answer.
No. I'd also throw Nathan Drake out there. I've only played Uncharted 4, but what I have played, I do really like. It sounds like it's a fun series overall, because I enjoyed my time with 4.
Did you watch the movie?
I did not.
It was okay.
Okay. Aggressively okay?
Aggressively okay. Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to be weird on YouTube, and I'm going to go through the slides to see like what other... Sackboy. I feel like he deserves an honorable mention. I like the playfulness, the fun. Sackboy's good. Just as like a fun, playable character. I don't know who the monkey guy is. Do you even know what this game is? How did this end up on the slide? What is this? We don't know.
Nope.
Okay, this is one that I almost made my number 3. Jak and Daxter games are all incredible, including the PSP one that everyone seems to have forgot about. There was both a Daxter and a Jak and Daxter game on the PSP. The Jak and Daxter game was phenomenal because the PSP one was where, like, usually in the Jak games, so you start off, the first one is just normal platformer. Second one comes in and all of a sudden you can harness dark energy, like darkness itself, and also now there's guns. And that's when the Jack games get really good. And then Jack 3, a little bit more than that, but you have like some light powers involved. Come the Jack and Daxter that happened on the PSP, you were only able to harness the light energy. So it's all like light powers. And for me, that was it was a lot of fun. Just, magic plus guns is always a good combination. It's why I'm super excited for Fable. The characters are also fun. Daxter has a lot of that same humor that like Ratchet has. Jack for me is a little too serious. But I like his ability to adapt because he starts off in a world where it's just kind of like puzzles. And then all of a sudden it's, hey, there's guns now. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll use guns now. Like the adaptability of the characters, I think something really admirable. I like them a lot. Had to do a shout out because it was really hard not to choose that as number 3. Same thing, Sly Cooper. It was also hard not to put him in there. He's basically just Robin Hood. Who doesn't like Robin Hood? And the game's animation is phenomenal, but that has nothing to do with characters. It's just the animation's really good. Let's see who else. Crash Bandicoot. Gotta love Crash Bandicoot. Ironically, this is what's funny. So Naughty Dog creates Crash Bandicoot and then goes on to make Jak and Daxter, and then Insomniac does Spyro and then goes on to make Ratchet and Clank. I have a harder time with the more serious character of Jak compared to Ratchet. Like, it's just easier for me to connect with Ratchet because he's just funny, and that's also how I deal with drama is humor, so it makes sense. But it's interesting how like Naughty Dog went from Crash Bandicoot, who for me, the reason I don't choose him over Spyro is he's just a little too silly, and then they go into Jak and Daxter, which is like, we're going to harness darkness itself now. And like, yeah, I wasn't allowed to play Jak 2 because there was cuss words. I was allowed to play Ratchet and Clank because it used symbols instead of the word ass. It had the @ symbol and $2 signs, so that made it okay. I don't know. That's just how it works, apparently. But yeah, so it was funny because I end up following Insomniac from Spyro, who's technically the more serious of these two, into Ratchet, who's the sillier of the two with him and Jak. But is there? Okay, I guess that's all the honorable mentions that we'll do. We went through the slides. We still don't know what one of the slides are or how it made it in there. I made the slides. Still don't know how it happened. But Christian, how do you think your top 3 pick would compare to like if we did mainstream? We just like did a poll of everyone in the world who they think the main 3 are. Do you think that any of your 3 is probably the main 3?
I'd probably put Kratos on that list.
I think so too. Yeah.
Because honestly, I was trying to think maybe mainstream, either Ratchet and Clank or Jak and Daxter would be up there.
Yeah.
I think maybe Crash, as far as like mainstream things go.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Probably Crash, Ratchet, and Kratos. Although Nathan Drake might beat out Crash. I feel like because it's been time and nostalgia only goes so far. Yeah, and a lot of people love those games that they'll live and die by it. Ratchet, I feel like, is starting to lose popularity because it's been a while since he created a new game, and those who are keeping up with the games are kind of aging out of that kind of game, I feel like. But maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I still love the games, so there's that. I think at one point Sackboy probably would have been in the top 3 mainstream, but I think he's definitely faded out of popularity, at least a little bit. Christian seems unsure.
I mean,
all right. Well,
I never played it. Know nothing about it.
Well, why do you think? Let's say that we agree that it's Ratchet, Kratos, and Nathan Drake or Crash Bandicoot. We'll go with those 4. If those 4 we say are like the mainstream picks, like what do you think that our culture sees in these characters that's worth admiring?
That's a good one. Having never played Ratchet and Clank, I can't speak to that too much. But as far as like, Kratos and Nathan, you get for the Nathan side of things, you get the explorer who's trying to solve mysteries. And there's always, mysteries have always been huge in the world. People want to know the answer to the question. That's why we ask questions, is to find the answer. So when you give a series where you get answers, so that might be something there. Kratos, sometimes you just want to kill things and not get in trouble with the law for it. So, Kratos is a great way to get that aggression out. So you can kill Medusa or what have you later on so that you don't get in trouble for beating up and maybe murdering your boss.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's see, I'm trying not to be too unkind to main culture. in the mainstream culture. Because I really think that probably most people don't put as much thought into their games as maybe we do or other friends of ours do. I'm thinking Crash Bandicoots probably would make this list on nostalgia alone. I think it has nothing to do with his character. I truly think Nathan Drake makes it because the games look cool and you kind of get to feel like Indiana Jones, and there hasn't really been a good Indiana Jones game until like this year. So I feel like it's like, it's the same reason Tomb Raider was cool. We like that kind of idea of like exploring, coming up and feeling like the hero, and then maybe, taking some stuff for ourselves, some rare artifacts. I don't know. I think it's just simply the explorer thing. I truly think that people don't think that much about Ratchet. I think the reason he makes it up there is because the design is recognizable and he's funny. I think it's just that simple. Kratos, I think at one point it was probably just because of the design and the voice. But I think as the new games have came out, the reason his character is still in the main fray of everything is because like that redemption arc is something people want to believe about themselves. So I think that's the one that I'd probably be the most charitable about. I really think that part of why he's a character that people admire today really is because of the story. And then part of that's because there's literally settings on some of the new God of War games where you basically are just walking through and watching the story. Like there's very little gameplay if you set it to some of the settings that are available, because like there's an awareness that the story is why people are coming to at least the new God of War games.
Yeah.
So I'll be more charitable towards why people like him. All right. Last thing we're going to do here before we start doing some of the wrap up stuff, Christian, we're going to make a list of characteristics from all of the characters we mentioned, whether, our top picks or honorable mentions or, whatever, what you want to emulate from these characters or what you want to get rid of from yourself. So like maybe I'll say, I want in 2025, I hope to get rid of some of the selfishness I have that's like Ratchet, but I want to embrace some of Ratchet's genuineness and humor. I want to embrace the cleverness of Sly Cooper. I want to embrace the playfulness of Sackboy. I want to immolate or disregard the anger of Kratos. I don't like that kind of anger. I think there's good anger, but I don't want to be an angry person. And then in 2025, I think I also want to embrace the bravery, the courage from Spyro. And of course the ingenuity of Isaac Clarke. So that'd probably be my list. Christian, if you just a list of just things, it doesn't have to be all encompassing, just your thoughts of what you want to embrace or disregard from yourself in 2025 based on these characters.
But one thing I forgot to mention about the Hunter when I was doing that is that literally the whole time when you die, you have the choice to go back to where you just died. Or, is it worth fighting for? Is it like, what's going on here? Is it pretty much typical FromSoft, formula there? And like, hey, it's easy to like rage quit a game when it's difficult or something like that. It's easy to rage quit a situation or a friendship when things are going wrong. But it's a lot harder to persevere and learn how to adapt to the situation, learn how to, fight better, whether it be, in the game actually fighting, or like learning how to choose our words more carefully in an argument, or learning what aspects of that person so we don't. I
thought you were going to specifically say not using the word immolate.
Yeah, not using the word immolate, using a better word like excise. Now, I think that's important, is like not having that give up nature. Like, I want to be more the person who, in a world full of difficulty, stands up for truth, stands up for good, and keeps fighting, knowing that in this world, it's never going to get finished until Jesus comes back. It's an impossible fight to win because I'm never going to win it, but it's still a fight worth fighting. Now, I'll second Kratos' anger as well. Like, it has gotten extremely easy as time goes on to get angry at other people and what they say and what they do. And I'm talking all across the different spectrums you're thinking about right now. On both sides of the argument, myself. I find myself, you in general, but but just people that like, why would you say that? Why would you do that? Now, I'm not talking a specific political party. I'm talking in general. Like, I have gotten really angry with people. And if I allow that anger to take control of me and define me, then I'm part of the problem. So I need to get rid of that and then learn how to control that anger and then channel it to something more productive. And I'll go back to Isaac Clarke for ingenuity and adaptability as well. And just like, hey, look, these are impossible odds, but if I want to survive, if I want to get out of here, I've got to figure out how to work things to where I come out on top. I think that's something I could do a lot better on. I think we in general could do something better on that. And you know what? You mentioned, your favorites over there. Like, it's always good to have a sense of humor when things are down, because it's just, it's so easy. It's easy not to be able to just handle a situation appropriately. And I do the same thing. Humor helps me out in situations where things are oppressive or it's looking really bad for me. So using that wisely would help. Knowing my audience would help too. Because like sometimes you crack a joke, people think you don't care about the situation. People think you're just flippant, other than like that's how you handle it. So just knowing your audience, that's something I need to work on better. Because my tendency is to just crack a joke, and that's not always the best option.
Yeah. Man, yeah, those are some good lists. I'm trying to think if there's anything else as far as like what I want to the adaptability of Jack, but maybe not to the extent that he takes it of like darkness. We're using darkness now. All right. Maybe not be that adaptable.
Yes.
So I both want to emulate that, but like emulate it carefully.
Wise.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we didn't have anything else to add, I think it's time to go to our wrap up. And for today's bonus question after the episode, we will stay back and we're going to answer the question of which gaming world from PlayStation we would most like to travel to in real life. So if you want to hear that, Captivate, Patreon, Apple Podcast, got to support us on one of those, and you can get that bonus question. But for now, we're going to give you a recommendation. Right now, I'm going to keep it game related. I really do think more people should play Pokemon Arceus. It's an awesome game. Yeah. Christian, what about for you?
Yeah, the first part of the new DC, not animated, regular movies are coming out through animation, that being Creature Commandos, and that has been a lot of fun so far. I know it might not be everyone's taste, but I'm enjoying the ride.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then the Superman stuff that was turning the show on. Okay, anyway. Oh, yeah. It's not even out yet, and I already love it. The music is reminiscent of the 10th Doctor. And, that's all I could ask for. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if you enjoyed this, let us know. And if you're on a laptop, go ahead and go over to Podchaser or Good Pods. Leave us a rating and review there. This is going to help our show gain recognition, make it easier to find our show on other search engines. If you're on your phone, you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts to comment, rate, review the show there. And that's going to help prioritize our show in these algorithms for those apps. And, all that stuff helps a lot. So thank you guys so much in advance for the support. We really do appreciate it. And again, we also appreciate our supporters on Apple Podcasts, Captivate, and Patreon. Today's shout out once more is James Barrett. You rock, James. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And if you guys would like your own shout out, you can also support the show for as little as $3 a month on one of those three platforms. Again, Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon. Remember, this is part of a series of bonuses that we're doing at the beginning of the year of iconic games, what characters we want to emulate or immolate. So if you want to hear more, link down below in the show's description. We'll have the whole series to date, and we will continue this next Friday. And remember, we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.
If you love our show, you can follow the whole network in a single feed on Spotify at Anazara Ministry Podcast or the network page on Apple Podcasts. There you'll find shows like The Homely, The Whole Church Podcast, My Seminary Life, Let Nothing Move You, Dummy for Theology, The Bible After Hours, as well as mine and my husband's show, The Clydes, where my husband Taylor and I go through weekly discussions in a devotional conversational method to help us all get closer to one another and God.
Hello, friends. Are you enjoying what you're hearing from Systematic Geekology today in your earbuds, or whether it's on YouTube, or whether you're in traffic, or whether you're at work? Well, there's another way that you can stay engaged with us at Systematic Geekology, and that's on our Instagram account. Yes, hop over to Instagram, follow. We'll follow back, we promise. We post lots of fun stuff over there, whether they're updates on new podcasts that are coming out or getting ready to come out, or whether they're memes, or we're sharing what other of our friends are up to out in the world. Sometimes we go live at events, whether we're at a Comic-Con or whether we are just hanging out with friends on the back porch grilling out. You can follow us there. We also have videos and reels, like what's in Will's pull box from his local comic book store. He shares what he's reading in the world of comics. And then Christian is going to do some reviews of Spider-Man comics called Spidey Swing Bys. That's going to be fun. And then there's non-canon stuff. Non-canon? What? Yeah, Joshua's going to be reviewing one intellectual property from outside of the canon of his favorite fandoms, or a piece of literature that's a part of the biblical extra-canonical material. Man, that sounds like fun. But yeah, Instagram is one of my favorite social media outlets, and love to engage with friends and family over there. And so we hope that you can engage with us there.